Hello viewers, today I am going to talk to you about history. Now, what do we define as history? History is defined as time. History is defined as obviously the past, things that happened far long time ago, things that happened far back. That's what history is defined as. And does history define us or do we define history? Well, the answer to that question is that we define history. Because humans create history, we write history, we do everything with history. But most of us don't enjoy learning about history. Why is that? It's because, well, I understand to a certain degree history is boring. Happened in the past, not too many exciting things happened about most of the things you learn about. Probably the time period that really made the most foreground in human history is probably 1800 to now. Made the biggest impact on how we view and see the world today. Definitely. During that time, the steam engine was invented, trains came about, the telephone came about, electricity, the light bulb, travel, plane travel. So, what good is history? Well, we use history to learn from the past, not make mistakes about the future and whatnot. How useful is that? Well, it's pretty useful, I guess, even though we still make the mistakes that we do in the past, but history is a better way to reflect on them. That's the whole point of social studies. Social studies is using history to compare social issues and problems and challenges and changes, things like that. That's the whole point of social studies. Now, the time period that history happened mostly in was the 20th century. 20th century was very, very, very much so filled with history and events that changed and defined our world. So we can start from the beginning. So if we go to World War One, started in 1914, ended in 1918. World War One really caused us to define how to define warfare. It's the only war that chemical weapons were ever used in. It's the war where the use of gas masks were appropriated. It's also the war that, well, created the modern fighter jet and invented the dogfights. Well, it's also the war that saw a great rise in technology, as in the time period more machine guns are being produced and used extensively. The tank was also born during this time period. And there really wasn't much to it, I guess. It was just the word tank is pretty ingenious because they called them tanks back then, so no one would question what they were because they didn't really know what to call it. And the name kind of just stuck. So you said tanks. Oh, tanks. Okay. Well, they're just tanks then. They passed along on trains. So how does history Okay, so after World War One, now there's this time period that where Germany's economy has gone down the drain, down the tube completely. Now everybody's rallying for change, and
Could you just take 5 minutes out and help me with this? What do you
you just ruined my video.
think?
God, Jesus. Anyway, going with what we're going on with. We're going with. Anyway, sorry. After that, Germany's economy just went down the tube. Everybody was starving. Uh, uh, the money was so devalued that a suitcase full of bills couldn't even buy you breakfast. Let's put it that way. And then out of this mist suddenly emerges one man. Hitler. Adolf Hitler. He is seen as many during that time. There's no doubt in my mind, he was a horrible, terrible person. But the things he did for Germany were, well, got them out of debt. He built their national pride once again. He basically built the country again. That's what Hitler did. Sure, he was a bad person. His ideals weren't the best. But if you look at it from that perspective, then in a very remote sense, you could call Hitler somewhat of a good person. Not completely, but somewhat of a good person. Now, what about now? Let's see. Now, Hitler decides, well, we need to take back the land that was lost. He also increases Germany's standing army, which is restricted by the Treaty of Versailles after World War One. Now they're increasing the size of his army and whatnot. They're building it up, and now Hitler really is readying himself for a war, because he figures that the territories that were once his should be part of Germany's again. So he starts encroaching on some countries' borders, like Czechoslovakia, for example. He takes them. He also decides to build concentration camps and take the Jews and whoever else he didn't like and kind of just throw them inside of it. That's what Hitler did. And finally, the Allies were getting wind of this, and then they realized Hitler wanted to control this land. And so what happened is that he invaded, and then he invaded Poland September 1st, and then France and Britain gave him 2 days to get out of the country, but he didn't. So they declared war on Germany. And that's where the most destructive conflict in human history started. Hitler's biggest mistake was that the Nazis were very intelligent, as they had a mass of technologies that most of the world had not even seen at that point. Hitler's first mistake was not giving enough funding, not developing these technologies first, not patenting them, not creating them enough, not giving them time to blossom. Because if Hitler had really given it thought, then he would have taken maybe 5 years or so or less, who knows, to build everything. He would have taken his time. Then he could have carried out his plans for invasion, and everybody would be like, "Oh my God, Germany was very far ahead of its time, very far ahead." Hitler easily could have ruled the world if he had probably done that, and if he didn't attack Russia, if he had stayed with the treaty, the truce they had with Russia, then maybe Russia would have joined Germany's side. Maybe. I could be saying this in German right now, but I'm not, thankfully. But after the war, America came in and swept it up. They cleaned it up, did whatever. They just came in, blah, 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 took their technology, took their scientists before obviously the Russians could get to them. They didn't take all of them. The Russians got some as well, because Germany was obviously they were well on their way to having an atomic bomb ready by 1946, and their jet technologies, their propulsion technologies, their weapon technologies, their their advanced livelihood, I guess you could say. Germany and well, Germany fell and has never really. Well, it has in a sense. It's the best country in the EU, but after Hitler obviously killed himself and the Nazis went away and whatnot, then there really wasn't much left. Then after that came the long period of rebuilding, and the Russians split Berlin. So West Germany, and East Germany. So East Germany fell into the Iron Curtain, and West Germany was the nice Germany that, well, everybody loved to go to. Then they started constructing a wall, the Berlin Wall. As you know, there's guards everywhere, guard posts, and people tried to climb the wall, but obviously you're gonna get shot if you try. You also, some people also got smuggled across the wall in secret, of course, and they made it over to their families in West Germany. And they were able to live at least. So what Russia effectively did is they turned countrymen against countrymen, in a way. That's exactly what they did. So what did this in turn do? It obviously divided up the people. They all started to just hate each other. It created a whole dimension of hate. And then in 1991, the Soviet Union broke up completely. And all the countries that it controlled before had, it was relinquished, and they were free to do as they pleased. Now, there was also the Vietnam War during this time period where Soviets were supplying weapons to the North Vietnamese, and then the Americans were backing up the South Vietnamese. And Vietnam today is one whole united country. There's also the Korean War in the 1950s. But there's only been one conflict America's actually really won is World War II. World War I doesn't really count since it came in so late. But viewers, I want you to think before I leave you how the world would look like if Germany won World War II. How would this world look like? How would its shape be? How would its shapes be? How would its buildings be? How would its laws be? Everything. How would it be? Thanks for watching.